Hey guys, tonight we're sinking into the muddy banks of the Thames in Victorian London, not as tourists, but as mudlarks. That's right, you're about to spend an entire day scouring one of the filthiest rivers in history, looking for scraps just valuable enough to keep starvation at bay. You'll be cold, wet, and likely infected with something no doctor has a name for. You'll work with your hands, your eyes, and a kind of sixth sense for rusted nails and sunken buttons. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the sun, or rather, before the gray glow of daylight begins to press itself into the soot-stained glass of your lodging house window. You don't have an alarm clock. You don't need one. Your body has learned the rhythm of survival: rise early or go hungry. The mattress beneath you, if it can be called that, is a flattened sack of straw that smells of mildew and other unmentionable things. Something squirmed in it last night. You pretended not to notice. Your limbs ache, not in the poetic, I walked a long way kind of way, but in the deep, marrow-soaked London winter kind of way. Your knees crack when you sit up. Your back complains before your mouth does. You're 10 years old and already walk like a retired chimney sweep. Your bedmates, two brothers, one cousin, and possibly a rat with squatter's rights, are still asleep. One of them coughs wetly, the kind of cough that Victorian doctors would call a touch of the galloping consumption. You throw on your one shirt and your half-thawed boots, trying not to breathe too deeply. Outside the boarding house, the alley yawns open like a forgotten throat. It smells of coal smoke, human waste, and the type of fish that died unloved and uneaten. The sky is the same color as your laundry water, and you trudge through a carpet of damp newspaper, cabbage leaves, and the occasional horse dropping. Victorian London is not so much a city as it is a smell held together by bricks. You head for the river. The Thames, grand and gleaming in postcards, is in real life a brown heaving soup of refuse and regret. It is not a place you admire. It is a place you enter, a place you mine for treasure, in the same way a dog might mine a trash bin for leftovers. Except the dog has better odds. The tide is out. That's good. More riverbank means more chance at finding something, anything, you can sell. The mud is slick and thick and pulls at your boots like it knows you by name. You nearly fall twice before you even reach the water's edge. You step down onto the exposed foreshore. The air is sharp with salt, rot, and the faint chemical tang of someone's discarded nightstand elixir. You dig into the muck with your stick, a scavenger's wand, polished by years of use and desperation. It's not much, but it's your tool, your hope, and your insurance policy against complete invisibility. Historians still argue whether the term mudlark was originally affectionate, mocking, or just practical. Either way, it's stuck, like the mud itself. Your fingers go numb within minutes, not just cold, wooden. You find a cracked clay pipe. Not worth much, but you pocket it. A bent spoon. Better. Then, jackpot, a copper coin, dulled by water but real. You wipe it on your sleeve. George III glares up at you, like he's disappointed in your life choices. That's fair. The riverbank is quiet, except for the occasional distant cursing from another mudlark and the wet slap of something falling into the water. You don't look up. If it was big enough to be a threat, someone would already be running. As you sift through broken tiles, melted shoe soles, and rusted nails, your thoughts drift, not to the future, there isn't much of one, but to breakfast. You hope there's still a heel of bread in the pantry. Maybe the landlady hasn't locked the cabinet yet. You find a small lead soldier missing an arm. It's heavier than it looks. Probably lead. Could be worth a penny or two if the rag and bone man's in a good mood, which he rarely is. A shout echoes behind you. Another mudlark's found something. A pocket watch, perhaps. Or maybe just a shin bone from an old butchered horse. Either way, you don't go look. Every second you spend gawking is one someone else uses to grab what the tide coughed up. The wind cuts through your coat such as it is. It's more whole than fabric now, a patchwork of past repairs and current failures. But it still holds a bit of body heat, and that's what matters. The sky lightens a little. Not blue exactly, more like lighter gray painted over yesterday's ash. You glance upriver. The water is rising slowly. You've got maybe 2 more hours before the Thames takes the bank back for itself. Time to move further down, toward the ferry post. The older kids avoid that area. Said something about a ghost or a lunatic who sleeps in the dock's hollow. You, though, are small and fast. If there's treasure in that muck, you're claiming it. Your boots squelch like they're chewing gum with every step. One slips halfway off, and you curse under your breath. Not out loud. Last time someone caught you swearing, you earned a clout to the ear and a half-hour lecture about the Queen's English and her delicate constitution. You pause near a rotting beam half sunken in sludge. You dig beside it, careful not to disturb the things that like shadows. The things with many legs and questionable tempers. A buckle. Brass? Maybe from a soldier's belt. Your heart kicks up. This could be worth a meal. Maybe even enough to split with your sister if she hasn't already spent her morning crying over nothing again. You press on, fingers aching, eyes scanning, ears alert for the tide. The river doesn't care about you. It will drown you as easily as it feeds you. You've seen it happen. And just like that, the first real light of day hits the far shore. Your boots are soaked. Your legs are numb. Your stomach growls like an offended dog. And the day has barely begun. You don't notice the smell right away. Not because it's not there. It is. It always is. But because your nose, much like your will to live, has adapted. After a while, the stench becomes more of a background character, a familiar cast member in the long-running production called Your Miserable Victorian Life. Still, now that you pause to breathe through your mouth for a second, it hits you. A rich, layered bouquet of everything London has to offer. Sewage, fish guts, coal smoke, something sulfurous that may have once been an eel or someone's aunt. You can't tell. The Thames doesn't flow so much as it seethes. It's alive in a way that rivers shouldn't be. Bubbling, swirling, whispering secrets with every gust of wind. Historians still argue whether the river was ever technically declared toxic in this era, or if Londoners just collectively decided not to ask questions. You pick your way along the banks, trying to avoid the slickest patches of mud. Some spots are so black they look like they've been soaked in despair. You've seen kids lose their shoes in there. You've seen one lose his balance and vanish up to the knees, emerging with a bootful of what might generously be called organic stew. A dead cat floats by, belly up and strangely serene. You nod at it, like you might a coworker. Morning, you murmur. The cat says nothing. You stop near the docks, where the river laps lazily against the broken hull of an old barge. This spot's usually good for finding bits of rope, maybe even nails or iron hooks, items that fetch a coin or two if the rag dealer isn't hung over or halfway to jail. But the smell here is particularly vicious. Not just rot, not just decay, a thick, wet wall of olfactory offense, as though someone melted down every bad decision ever made and let it fester in the sun. You fight the urge to gag. You fail a little. Nearby, a coal barge is being unloaded. Black dust hangs in the air like Victorian confetti settling on your skin, your clothes, your teeth. You spit, but the grit is already in your mouth, crunching between molars like you've bitten into a sandwich made of chimney sweep. The workers on the barge don't notice you. They never do. You're part of the scenery, like pigeons, puddles, or scandal. You move through the background of their world, unseen and unsung, except when you get in the way. Oi, you deaf? A man yells, barely missing you with a shove as he hauls a sack of coal across the dock. You jump aside, but not fast enough to dodge the splash of slush that kisses your leg with icy affection. You don't reply. Apologies waste breath and make you look weak. You just nod and scurry on. Let's take a moment to talk about your sense of smell. It's both your best ally and your greatest enemy. You've learned to tell the difference between good filth and bad filth. The briny tang of salt-washed rope, possibly useful. The chemical sharpness near the tannery runoff, best avoided unless you fancy your hands burning for the next 2 days. The sour, sweet stink that seems to cling to the bridge supports, do not investigate. Today it's mostly fish, salted, rotting, half missing, the kind of fish that haunts dreams. Some are whole, some are fragments. Some might not have started as fish at all. You step over a clump of feathers. You don't ask. The worst part is, you can't just ignore the smell. You have to interact with it, evaluate it, use it. When your stomach growls, your nose is the first warning system. Bread that's gone too far south, your nose will tell you. If the green fuzz hasn't already formed a union and started collecting dues, you reach down to nudge something half buried in the muck. It squelches. Could be leather, could be skin. You poke again, just to be sure. It's a shoe, a whole one. Your eyes widen. It's worn, yes. Waterlogged, possibly haunted, but still intact. You glance around. No one's watching. You slide it into your sack. That's gold, that is. At least metaphorically. A whole shoe might fetch a decent copper or two, or fit your own bare foot if you're lucky enough that your left and right feet are in an on-again, off-again relationship. The stench shifts with the breeze. A new layer is added. Horse, urine, maybe some sort of pickled onion that died in transit, and always, always, that tang of decay that Victorian London wears like a second skin. You try breathing through your mouth again. Big mistake, because now you can taste it. It's like licking a soup made from dead oysters and coal tar. You choke a little, then you laugh, because what else can you do? Welcome to your life. The boat workers finish unloading, and you sneak closer to their discard pile. Splinters of wood, a broken pulley, and, oh yes, a length of rope. Good rope too, not too frayed, still flexible. You grab it and tug, ignoring the sound it makes coming loose, like someone peeling off a boot that's grown fond of the foot. This, you know, will sell. The rag and bone man loves rope. He says it smells like trade. You're not sure what trade he means, but you're not paid to ask questions. You sling the rope over your shoulder. It drips. You don't think about what? The bell of a nearby church tolls 8 times, slow and heavy. You've been out for nearly 2 hours already. The tide is creeping back with a casual menace. The muck is thicker now, the fines fewer, but you can't stop. Not yet. Not while your stomach still growls, and your pockets still jingle with nothing but lint and the ghost of a wish. Your nose tingles again. The air shifts. Somewhere upstream, someone's dumped something new and inventive into the river. It smells vaguely like a tannery got into a bar fight with a brewery and no one won. You smile to yourself. It's going to be a great day. You don't really get dressed in the mornings, not in the way proper people do. There's no wardrobe, no selection of outfits, no mirror to check if your collar is charmingly rebellious today. There's just the pile of clothing at the foot of your straw mattress, most of which is already on your body, and one new decision. Is it worth adding the extra sock today? The answer, of course, is yes. Not because it matches, nothing matches, but because the one on your left foot has developed an exciting new hole that lets in mud, wind, and existential dread. So, sock, boot, and then, well, the rest is already doing its part. You're wearing 3 shirts. The bottom one was once white, or something close to it, before the Thames baptized it into its current streaked, tan and gray incarnation. The second shirt is thicker and scratchier, probably wool, probably made for someone 2 decades older and 3 stones heavier. It sags at the neck, bunches at the elbows, and smells faintly of old cheese and recent panic. The outermost shirt is actually a coat, or used to be. It's held together by mismatched buttons, patches, and what can only be described as wishful thinking. One shoulder is reinforced with twine. The other is simply giving up. You don't care. You're warmish, and that's the only metric that matters. Historians still debate what the average mudlark wore, because no two mudlarks looked the same. Clothing was scavenged, stolen, handed down, restitched, or simply absorbed into one's body after enough weeks of wear. You were what you could keep on your back. Fashion didn't matter. Warmth did. Survival did. Pride, well, that was a luxury item. Your trousers are short, not because you're making a statement, but because they belong to a boy who was shorter than you, but ate more potatoes. They end mid-shin, exposing a thrilling stretch of mottled skin in constant dialogue with the Thames breeze. One leg is patched with a square of curtain. You think it was floral once? No belt. You use a bit of rope, knotted creatively around your waist. One end dangles like it's hoping to be useful. It won't be. Your boots are mismatched. Left is leather, stiff with old polish and damp from permanent regret. Right is wooden soled and laced with twine. Neither is comfortable. Both are better than nothing. Underneath all this, your body itches in a dozen languages. You've stopped bothering to ask why. Fleas? Sure. Lice? Almost certainly. An angry rash that appears every time you wear that one shirt? Of course. But it's warm. So you scratch, shrug, and carry on. There's a boy across the embankment with a scarf. A real one. Red and unraveling at the end, but unmistakably a scarf. You eye it with something approaching envy. Not enough to steal, at least not today, but enough to make a mental note in case he disappears mysteriously into the tide next week. You check your pockets. Not for money, obviously. You'd remember if you had any. But for useful things. A bent nail, a button, a bit of string you thought looked promising. Mud. Lots of mud. You empty the last item onto the shore, which thanks you by burping up the smell of low tide and broken dreams. You add one more layer, a cap. It's not your best cap. It's not even technically a cap. It's more like the upper half of someone else's sock, reinforced with a bit of wire and hope. It perches on your head like a sad pigeon, but it keeps the wind off your ears, and that's all it needs to do. Your sister once tried to sew a patch onto it just to make it less embarrassing. She got halfway through before you reminded her that embarrassment was for people who had options. And then there are your hands. Oh, your hands. Nicked, scraped, permanently crusted, with a layer of something not quite dirt, not quite skin. Your fingernails resemble tiny shovels, rimmed with the history of the river. You wear no gloves. Gloves are for bankers and undertakers. You have fingerless socks, if you're lucky. Mostly, you just rub your hands together, breathe on them, and keep digging. In summer, you can at least dry your clothes on a fence post or a rusty railing near the docks. In winter, nothing dries. It freezes, then thaws, then molds, then freezes again, trapping the mildew like an ancient artifact. It's the Victorian cycle of textile life. And don't even think about laundry. Washing your clothes means two things. One, you need a body of water, and two, you need to not be wearing those clothes while you wash them. Both are deeply inconvenient, especially when you own precisely one outfit and the water is trying to kill you. Soap? That's a punchline. You once saw a bar in a shop window and felt a pang of distant curiosity, like seeing a giraffe or hearing about holidays. So instead, you wear your grime like armor. Dirt layers into the weave, into the seams, into your pores. Eventually, it becomes part of you. You're not clean, you're weatherproof. That coat you wear, it smells of smoke, sweat, and that one time you slipped into a dead jellyfish. But it keeps the wind out, mostly, and no one tries to take it off you, not even pickpockets, because frankly, even they have standards. You shift your sack from one shoulder to the other. The rope in it slaps damply against your back. Your shirt squelches. You pretend it doesn't. And through all this, through every patch, every smell, every soggy seam, you keep moving because this is the uniform of your life. This is what it means to be dressed when you're a mudlark. It means practicality over pride, layers over luxury, smell over style, and above all, it means being ready. Ready to bend, lift, run, and scavenge in the river's mouth like your next meal depends on it. Because it does. The city stretches before you like a stained patchwork quilt. Coal black rooftops, fog choked chimneys, and alleyways that twist and writhe like something alive. You head toward the Thames with your usual mix of grim purpose and mild resignation, the same way a miner walks toward a tunnel that might collapse or produce diamonds. Except in your case, it'll probably be a rusty nail and a stubbed toe. Your walk to the riverbank is not a stroll, it is a trek. A muddy, smoky, olfactory obstacle course that tests your balance, your patience, and your immune system all before breakfast. You trudge past the lodging houses where the smell of boiled cabbage and old socks has fused into the wallpaper. You pass market stalls shuttered tight, their owners still dreaming of profits, or maybe just one full night's sleep. The air is thick with last night's fires and the occasional shout of someone who drank instead of slept. Your boots slap against the cobbles, wet and uneven. Victorian London didn't believe in smooth roads. Every step is a question. Is this loose stone just a nuisance or a lawsuit waiting to happen? Not that lawsuits are an option for people like you. If the street injures you, you apologize to it and limp on. A cart rattles past, its wheels spraying a festive blend of street slop, horse urine, rainwater, and possibly someone's breakfast. You jump aside, narrowly avoiding a blessing from the rear end of a passing horse. It snorts as if offended by your agility. You turn down a narrower lane. This one's quieter, but also dodgier. The kind of alley where dogs fight over bones and children disappear without much paperwork. You know where the bad air lives, which doorsteps are safe to sit on, and which windows are likely to dump out their contents without warning. You keep to the middle of the lane. It's where the puddles live, but at least the puddles can't mug you. Historians still argue whether these alleyways were technically mapped or just made up as London grew. Either way, they function like the city's nervous system, dark, wet, and filled with unpredictable spasms. You pass a man sleeping upright against a wall. He's wrapped in what might once have been curtains. His hat is on sideways. He snores through his teeth. You don't disturb him. Disturbing sleeping adults in this part of town is a bit like poking a wasp nest wrapped in gin. A black cat darts across your path. Superstition whispers that it's bad luck. You snort, as if any day in your life could get measurably unluckier. You're halfway to the river now. The smell starts to change. Less chimney soot, more algae and old boots. You pass a pub, the kind that smells like spilled gin, lost wagers, and eternal regret. The sign swings lazily in the breeze. A faded painted goose stares blankly at you, possibly judging your life choices. You turn another corner and nearly step in something unspeakable. You don't look too closely. Some things are better left undefined. Ahead, a familiar figure waves. Old Nellie. She's not old, really. Maybe 30. But time and the Thames have done her no favors. Her hands are permanently the color of wet brick. Her eyes are sharp. She nods at you, then returns to digging near a drain with the kind of intensity usually reserved for treasure hunters or desperate squirrels. You wave back. Not because you're friends, but because she didn't throw a rock at you that one time. In your world, that counts as affection. The final stretch of your walk takes you beneath the bridge. The space under it smells like wet rope and disappointment. The stone walls are slick with moss and graffiti that's less art and more warnings. A rusty hook dangles from an old beam overhead, swaying slightly in the breeze. You take the narrow steps down to the foreshore. The river greets you with its usual indifference, oozing between rocks and debris like it's late for something unpleasant. You pause at the bottom of the steps. This is where the tide has retreated, just far enough to expose the secrets it's buried overnight. You squint. Bits of wood, metal, possibly bone, possibly not. You can never tell at this hour. But first, you check the sky. Clouds like soot, light like spoiled milk. Good. It'll be a gray day. That means fewer passers-by, fewer inspectors, and fewer people to tell you you're not supposed to be here. You roll your shoulders, feel your shirt stick to your back like a loyal rash, and step forward into the sludge. The mud welcomes you with a thick, wet slurp. One boot sinks past the ankle. You wiggle it free. This is the game now. Move slow, keep your balance, and don't fall unless you enjoy being laughed at by strangers and possibly contracting 17 new illnesses. A rat scurries past. You nod. Morning. It ignores you. Rats are busy creatures. Probably has a meeting. You reach your usual spot near a half-submerged barrel. The waterline marks the limit of your territory. Beyond that, the current grows bolder, and the footing becomes faith-based. You take a breath. Not a deep one. Nobody breathes deep here, and now your day really begins. The river doesn't wait. The tide won't pause. You've got hours, maybe less, before it all disappears again. So you dig, so you search, so you keep walking, because every step brings you closer to something you might sell, or something you'll step on and regret for a week. Either way, you keep going. You take that first step into the Thames mud like it's a handshake with a very unfriendly stranger, cold, gripping, and slightly too intimate. Your boot sinks with a sucking noise that could haunt dreams. For a terrifying moment, it holds on, like the river's trying to decide if you're worth keeping. You wrench your foot free and keep moving, slowly, carefully. The tide is still low, exposing ribbons of slime-slick shoreline strewn with the clutter of civilization's leftovers. Rope, brick, shells, things with eyes. The kind of place that looks like nature and mankind had a fight, and both walked away, ashamed. The cold creeps up immediately, not just at your feet. It crawls into your bones, climbs your spine, sits on your lungs like a damp towel. The Thames doesn't offer a gentle wake up call. It slaps you in the face and then demands you thank it for the opportunity. The mud is alive. It bubbles and shifts beneath your weight. You step from one broken timber to a slab of sunken masonry, then back to muck. Always listening, always testing. One false move and you're stuck. And not metaphorically, like actually stuck. You've seen kids lose boots this way. And once, famously, a kid lost both boots and half his dignity in front of a laughing crowd and an unamused constable. He walked home barefoot and furious, yelling things that made even the rats blush. You crouch beside a pile of river junk that's half buried in the sludge, bits of pottery, maybe a shoe buckle, possibly just an artistic stick. Hard to tell. You pick through it with your larking stick, a 4-foot piece of wood you found 2 years ago and have since declared irreplaceable. It's smooth from use, notched in places where you carved your initials. Once, badly, you were interrupted halfway through by a falling dead gull. A moment you don't like to talk about. You prod a suspicious looking lump. It doesn't move. Good start. You scrape some mud aside. Metal. A coin? No, a flattened bottle cap. You sigh and pocket it anyway. Historians still argue whether mudlarks were technically scavengers, proto-recyclers, or the very first environmentalists. You suspect it depends on whether the historian in question has ever spent an hour pulling a moldy boot from the underside of a dead barge. The river offers you no comfort. Its edge glistens, oily and reflective, like the eye of something large and amused. Seagulls scream overhead. One drops something that lands near you with a splat. You do not investigate. Your fingers are already numb. You kneel on a rock, but it's wet, and now your knee is wet, and there is simply no such thing as dry in your life anymore. You find a piece of copper wire, worth maybe a farthing. Still, you smile. If you get enough of these, you might afford bread, with something more exciting than lard. You hear a squawk of victory further down the shore. Someone's found something. You glance up. It's Jemmy, all elbows and grins, holding up a broken watch like it's Excalibur. He dances in the mud, slips, and falls flat on his back. The watch vanishes into the mire like it was never real. You shake your head and keep digging. There's a rhythm to it. Scan, prod, lift, inspect, decide, pocket, or discard. Every item you lift carries a little question. Is it useful? Is it saleable? Could it be traded for soup or socks? Or, if you're lucky, both. You find a shard of blue and white porcelain, a piece of a plate. Maybe once it held cake. Maybe it never saw cake and was just some wealthy person's fancy soap dish. Either way, it's history. And it's yours now. The water shifts behind you. Not the tide yet, but something else. A barge plows past, sending a slow wave across the riverbank. You step back instinctively. The wave laps at your boots, retreats, leaves behind new debris, fresh pickings. You pounce before the others do. A scrap of fabric, some broken glass, a rusted spoon, a hat pin. That last one's promising. You wipe it clean on your shirt, which adds little. It's bent but ornate, could be bone, maybe even ivory. You'll have to hide it until you find the right buyer. The ragman will pretend it's worthless, then sell it for a crown. You've learned that trick. You're no longer that naive. You tuck it into your boot. Let it poke. Let it remind you that the river sometimes gives gifts. The sun tries to rise. You glance eastward, squinting past chimneys and steeples. The sky is orange, then pink, then gray again. Typical. Another step. Your boot slips, and your hand goes down into the mud. You curse under your breath as a shiver runs up your sleeve and into your teeth. Your fingers brush something solid. You dig. A hinge. Brass. Still shiny beneath the grime. Possibly a box fitting. Could be worth something. You pull it free just as a gust of wind slaps your face with the smell of raw sewage and old ale. It's glorious. You grin. A real one. You've had worse mornings. You've had mornings where all you found was heartbreak and one decapitated doll's head. Today, you've got a coin, a hinge, and a possibly haunted hat pin. Not bad for a kid with one sock and a reputation for being too polite to bite. The wind kicks up again. You hunker down lower. The tide's still out, but not for long. You get maybe one more hour before the river takes back what it didn't gift you. So you keep digging, because this is the part that matters. The moment you find something that reminds you, you're still here. You're still fighting. You're still walking the line between the mud and the light. And for now, that's enough. You grip your larking stick tighter and wade deeper into the shoreline, scanning the muck for the shimmer of something valuable, or at least not actively decomposing. The tide has peeled back just enough to expose a new patch of debris, a glorious, glistening mess of Victorian leftovers and river-churned regrets. You approach like a surgeon, or a raccoon. Both are accurate. This new patch is promising. There's texture, bits of pottery, shattered glass, a tangle of rope, and something you suspect was once part of a piano. Possibly a chair. Possibly both. You're not here to judge. The key now is patience. You kneel, resting your weight on the balls of your feet, your knees already soaked through. The cold seeps upward. Your toes begin to forget they exist. With your stick, you prod a promising shape. Metallic, round, buried halfway beneath a stone. You dig it out, heart thumping a bit. It's a pulley wheel, cracked, rusted, heavy. Still, someone might want it. The rag and bone men are magpies with bad tempers. They'll take anything with weight, especially if it looks vaguely like it once belonged to a ship. You toss it into your sack with a clunk. You glance up. Across the bank, a girl, Lizzie maybe, or Sarah, hard to tell under the grime, crouches like a heron. She's got her sleeves rolled to the elbows and her entire forearm buried in a barrel. Her tongue sticks out slightly with concentration. You've seen that look. She's about to pull something stupidly valuable or horrendously revolting out of that barrel. Possibly both. You consider sprinting over. But mudlarking etiquette, unofficial as it is, dictates you don't steal from a barrel someone else has already adopted. Besides, if it is horrendous, you don't want to be blamed. You shift focus to the tangled rope beside you. You pry it loose. About a yard of it still holds. It's slimy, frayed at the ends, but strong. You'll coil it and carry it back. Could sell for a copper or two. Could also tie up your boot if the twine finally gives out. It's always good to have options. Then, there it is, the glint. That rare, delicious flash of light against metal, a kind of beacon in the sludge. You pounce. It's small, round, wedged between two bricks and half a horseshoe. You dig with both hands now, the cold completely forgotten. The object comes loose with a little suction sound. A coin, real, not a farthing either. Bigger, possibly a halfpenny, maybe even a penny. You rub it with your thumb, smearing away a century's worth of grime and questionable residue. The worn profile of Queen Victoria stares back at you, faint but unmistakable. You grin like a lunatic. Historians still debate whether mudlarks typically kept their finds or sold them immediately. You know the answer is both. You keep some things, the small things, the beautiful things, the coin with the hole in it, the odd little brooch, that carved wooden cat head that looks like it's judging you. They stay in the pocket of your coat, your personal museum of survival. But this coin gets sold. It's heavy enough to mean food, maybe even meat. Not much, mind you. Victorian meat is a relative term, but enough. You stand, fingers trembling, not from emotion, mostly from exposure. You flex them, then rub them against your coat, hoping to summon some warmth. You glance around. There's an older man working further up the bank. Bill, you think. He's not a regular. Looks down on the rest of you. Calls you rats with dreams. But he's not finding anything today. And your coin is already buried deep in your boot. Let him sneer. A gull lands nearby, staring at you with the soulless curiosity only birds and aristocrats possess. It screeches once, flaps its wings, then begins pecking at a discarded eel skin. You whisper, same, and move on. You find a nail, a long one, bent, but thick. Pocket. You find a strip of copper, twisted into something like a letter or a mistake. Pocket. You find a spoon with no bowl, just a handle. Not pocket. That one's for the river. The day marches on. The cold sharpens. The tide shifts. Your back aches. Your knees have formed a union and are threatening strike action. Your hands are so grimy, you could be mistaken for a chimney. And yet, your sack is growing heavier. That's the goal. Then it happens. A sting, right across your palm. You hiss and pull your hand back, turning it upward. Glass. A sharp edge from a bottle or maybe a broken jar. The kind with raised letters and a promise of miraculous cures. You've read them before. For coughs, phlegm, and unwanted emotions. They rarely deliver. You suck at the cut. It's shallow. Bleeds a bit, stings a lot. You wrap your hand in the tail end of your shirt and keep going. Because that's the rule. You don't stop. Not for pain. Not for cold. Not even for the river itself, which is now licking closer with every minute. There's a shout behind you. Someone fell. They're fine, probably. You don't look. Instead, you kneel again, this time reaching under a dock beam. It's dark, slippery, and definitely occupied by something with legs. But you're careful. Your fingers touch something hard. You pull it out slowly. A metal clasp. Decorative. Maybe from a purse, maybe from a book. It has scroll work. Rusted, but still beautiful. You smile, not because it's worth much, but because it reminds you that even in the muck, even in the sludge, even in the most wretched corners of this city, you still find fragments of beauty. You tuck it gently into your sack and press on. You're not the only one out here, and you never are. The riverbank is teeming with life, though not the cuddly, heartwarming kind. It's a stage, and the mudlarks are the players. Everyone's got a role, everyone's got an angle, and none of them are interested in sharing. To your left, there's Bess. She's 13, looks 5, and has a voice like a crow that smoked a pack a day since infancy. Bess is terrifying. She once bit a constable and got away with it by sheer audacity. You keep your distance. To your right, Old Man Pottle is muttering to himself again, waving a bit of string like it's a holy relic. You think he used to be a sailor, or a dentist, or possibly both. Either way, he's a fixture here, half in this world, half in another, where his dead wife still nags him about dinner. And then there's Alfie. Alfie is 10, fast, wiry, and entirely too clever for his own good. He's the kind of kid who can spot a shilling from across a fog bank and beat 3 others to it. He doesn't dig, he hunts, with eyes that miss nothing and a grin that tells you he's already thought 3 moves ahead. You've known Alfie for years. You've also chased him through alleyways when he lifted your best find out of your pocket like a magician. You forgave him eventually. That's just how the game works. Mudlarks aren't a team. You're more like a loose association of equally desperate scavengers, bound together by the shared religion of river filth. There's unspoken code here. First to see it, first to claim it. Don't touch someone else's barrel unless you like being jabbed with a larking stick. And if someone yells body, you run, not toward it, but away, because no one wants to talk to the watchman at this hour. Historians still debate how organized the mudlarking scene really was. Some say there were territories and rules. Others claim it was every child for themselves, a chaotic scramble that London politely chose not to look too closely at. Both are true, depending on the weather. Today's crowd is tense. The tide's lower than usual, which means more shoreline. More shoreline means more stuff, and more stuff means more people competing for it. You see a girl, Annie, dart past, with something clutched in her arms. You catch a glimpse of glass, a bottle maybe, whole. That's rare. 3 boys notice. They follow. You don't, because that's not your chase today. Today you're focused. And because last time you joined a crowd like that, it turned out to be a broken chamber pot with contents. You tighten your grip on your sack and scan the bank again. The finds are getting picked off fast now. Someone pulls out a length of chain. Another uncovers a rusted hinge the size of your hand. You kneel near a drainage pipe. Risky spot. Slippery, narrow, known rat territory. But rats don't usually bother people who smell worse than they do. And besides, this pipe is old. Really old. You've had luck here before. You start digging. Muck clings to your sleeves, slathers your wrists, slides beneath your fingernails. You ignore it. You've made peace with the idea that your hands are now 40% river. A shadow looms behind you. You tense. Find anything good? It's Alfie. He's smiling, which means trouble. You hold up a bent nail. Treasure, you say flatly. He nods solemnly. Could be magic. You grunt. So could dysentery. He laughs, then crouches beside you, already poking through the next patch of sludge like it's second nature. It is. You hear about the lady what dropped a brooch off Westminster Bridge? He asks low. No, you mutter, though you already know where this is going. Pearls, he says, eyes gleaming. Gold clasp. Said it was worth 10 quid. You snort. Then it's already been found and sold to the Queen's pigeon. Maybe, he shrugs, but maybe not. He grins again and scampers off like a Victorian goblin, chasing hope and a story probably older than the bridge itself. You return to your work, but his words stick. That's the danger of mudlarking. You never know if the next handful of sludge will hold a dead rat or a golden locket. The possibilities are a part of the addiction. Someone cries out nearby, not pain, joy, genuine, giddy triumph. You glance up. Tommy, red faced and shaking, is holding something up. It glitters. A ring. Muddy but unmistakable. Everyone sees it. Everyone moves. Tommy turns and bolts. Three others chase him. You watch the chaos unfold and shake your head. That's a tomorrow problem. That ring will vanish into some pawn shop before sunset. Or maybe Tommy will vanish, ring and all, into a pub that serves children if they pretend convincingly enough. You go back to your corner. Bess stomps past, muttering something about thieves and baboons. She's dragging a sack that looks heavy. You make a mental note not to ask questions. Old Man Pottle sits down on a crate and starts singing, softly to himself. Something about a mermaid who owed him money. You decide not to engage. Alfie's already vanished again, probably halfway to that brooch. You're alone, in the middle of a crowd. You dig. Because out here, competition is constant. The river gives and takes as it pleases. And if you don't move fast, someone else will. So you keep your eyes open. You keep your hands dirty. And you keep your secrets close. Especially the good ones. You pause for a moment, mud slick on your arms, knees aching, sack slumped against your hip, and take a breath. Not a deep one, of course. Just enough to remind yourself you're still upright, still functional, still tethered to this riverbank by hunger, stubbornness, and the faintest whiff of possibility. Because here's the truth. When you're a mudlark, everything is treasure. Or it might be. Or it was once, before it drowned. You scan your surroundings again, not for beauty, but for potential. There's a broken comb poking out from under a tile, a rusted gear beside a boot print, a shard of bottle glass with light glinting off its edges like the world's angriest diamond. Your fingers twitch. Even the ugliest things here whisper promises, maybe of warmth, maybe of coin, maybe just of being noticed. That bent nail? A cobbler might need it. That broken plate? A rag dealer might see art. That bootlace you found tangled in seaweed could be the very thing that saves someone's shoe or yours. Value is a flexible concept. So is morality. If someone drops it and you find it, it's yours now. If it's buried in mud and only slightly cursed, still yours. And if it smells like fish guts and colonialism, well, you just might be able to get a halfpenny for it behind the tannery. You reach down and lift a piece of wood, smooth, palm-sized, with a nail driven straight through. You turn it in your hands. It's nothing. It's everything. You tuck it into your bag anyway. Historians still debate whether mudlarks sold directly to merchants or through informal street markets. The answer, of course, is yes. Whoever gave the best price and didn't try to swindle you for sport. You've dealt with stallholders, dockhands, coopers, smiths, drunks, and once a woman who paid in pickled onions. You'd like to say you refused. You did not. You crawl along the embankment, eyes darting, back crooked. It's a dance. Lift, scan, judge. Over and over again. You find a buckle, a horseshoe, a shattered clay pipe, a button with a lion on it, a fork with 3 tines and half a handle. You know which of these will sell, which will not, which might be kept for trade or leverage or decoration. You know because you've spent half your life crouched here, fingers buried in the soggy memories of London. You find a metal clasp. It clicks open. You stare. It's attached to a bit of fabric, soaked and sludgy. You tug it loose gently, revealing a small purse. Leather, green once, now mostly mud colored. You open it. Empty, of course, but still whole, sellable, decorative even. You glance around, slip it into your coat, and smile. Some days, you don't need money, you need possibility. A group of tourists strolls by on the bridge overhead. You look up, eyes narrow. They point. One waves. You don't wave back. They're wearing gloves, clean boots, smiles. You're wearing the river. You find a brooch, bent, jewels gone, but the frame's intact, brass or bronze, with a leaf pattern etched in. You wonder briefly who lost it, who wore it, whether they cried or cursed, or even noticed it was gone. You shake the thought off. You don't have time for sentiment. Sentiment doesn't buy food. The air smells of iron and vinegar, and something faintly like boiled cabbage. A breeze carries the stench upriver, mingling with chimney smoke and the memory of last night's rain. Your sack is heavier now. Not full, not yet, but better. Each clang and rattle within it is a small affirmation. This one might be worth a halfpenny. That one might be worth bread. This one, you're not sure, but it feels valuable. You've learned to trust that feeling. Across the bank, Alfie holds up a fish skeleton and yells, "Dinner's on me." Someone throws a clump of mud at him. He ducks. It hits a barrel. The barrel protests. You smile. Just a twitch. But it counts. A boy you don't recognize tries to creep into your patch. You narrow your eyes. He catches your look and slinks away. You've earned this spot, fought for it, bled in it. You'll defend it. Because out here, yours isn't just about ownership. It's about sweat, cold, cuts. The number of mornings you've limped out here with nothing but a coat full of holes, and a prayer that today's filth might be slightly kinder. And it is sometimes. You pick up a shard of mirror, just big enough to see part of your face. Mud smeared cheek, a cut on your chin, eyes that haven't slept properly in days. You stare. You don't look rich, but you look real. And in this place, that's something. You drop the mirror piece into your bag. It clinks against your brass brooch, the nail, the bottle glass, the almost coin, the rope, the hinge. A chorus of maybes. A symphony of survival. You keep walking, feet half frozen, spine aching, fingers scraped and raw. Because this river, it doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you find. And what you find is everything. You hear the whistle before you see the constable. It's not a friendly sound. It never is. It's sharp, shrill, and full of Victorian moral superiority. A noise that says, "You there, small muddy urchin, how dare you try to survive in front of witnesses?" You glance up and spot the blue-clad figure striding along the river's edge, with his truncheon swinging, like he's late for a tea party and terribly cross about it. His mustache alone radiates suspicion. "Oi, you," he bellows, pointing at someone near the old pier. "You got a license to be crawling around in Her Majesty's sludge?" The answer, of course, is no. None of you do. Licenses for mudlarking are a thing now. Official paper-thin permission slips for rooting through river filth. Only a few older mudlarks actually have them. The rest of you? You're freelancing. Illegally. Passionately. Quietly. You duck low, sack over your shoulder, hands already smeared with plausible deniability. You are invisible. You are part of the river. A shadow in a cap. The constable waves his stick at a boy near the waterline. The kid scrambles away, skidding in the muck and disappearing behind a barge. The officer sighs, adjusts his belt, and continues on his self-important patrol, boots squelching with every step. Historians still argue whether these laws were genuinely enforced or mostly symbolic, designed more to comfort the rich than actually punish the poor. You'd argue they're enforced often enough to keep you on edge and rarely enough to keep hope alive. Alfie reappears beside you like a conjuring trick gone slightly wrong. He's breathing hard and grinning like he's just escaped a crocodile. And honestly, the constable probably smelled worse. Lost him, Alfie gasps, then doubles over laughing. Bloke almost slipped in a dead dog. You raise an eyebrow. Was the dog new? Newish. He shrugs, wiping mud off his sleeve onto his other sleeve. Did you see what Lizzie pulled out of the pipe? You hadn't. Copper bracelet, he says, lowering his voice like it's classified. Still had the clasp on. Any initials? None, she mentioned. Could be worth a bob if she cleans it up. You nod and pretend you're not slightly jealous. Because if there's one rule among unlicensed mudlarks, it's this. Every find someone else makes is clearly inferior, unless it's better than yours. Then it's probably stolen. Alfie squats and begins poking through a nearby pile of debris with the precision of someone who once found a tiny silver thimble and spent 2 weeks convinced he was royalty. I hate the ones with questions, he mutters suddenly. You glance at him. Questions? Yeah, he says, lifting a brick to inspect what's beneath. Like, who dropped this? What were they doing? Did they miss it? Was it chucked in anger or accident? I don't like thinking about the people part. You consider that, because he's right. Every object here has a past. Every coin a pocket. Every brooch a wrist. Every boot a journey that ended in a squelch. You pick up a spoon with initials carved into the handle. PM. Probably not about time. You wonder, just for a second, if PM was someone's name or just a reminder to eat dinner. Then you pocket it. Because thinking too hard in the mud is dangerous. It slows your hands. It fogs your instincts. It makes you care. And caring gets in the way of surviving. Another whistle. Different this time. It's Tommy, perched up on a pile of bricks like a crow with attention issues. Watchman's coming, he shouts. Groans ripple down the foreshore. The watchman is worse than the constable. Less angry, but more thorough. And he writes things down. Names, descriptions, sometimes even addresses. Not yours, of course. You don't have an address. Not in the proper sense. Just that alley off Mill Street, or top floor of Mrs. Barlow's, with the broken window and the cat that's probably immortal. You glance at the sky. The light has shifted. The clouds have gone from gray to ominous linen. The river glimmers just a little brighter, which can only mean one thing. Time's up. The tide is returning. You feel it before you see it. The subtle lapping, the tension in the air, the way the wind shifts direction like it's working in cahoots with the water. You move quickly now. Last chances, last grabs. You spot a rusted hinge, a broken chain, a bottleneck. Your fingers dart like sparrows, collecting, assessing, discarding. And then, near the base of a mossy beam, you spot something dark, curved, buried. You dig, carefully. It's heavy. You lift it. A metal cup, bent but whole, with an engraving. St. Bart's Infirmary, 1842. You blink. Hospital property. Old. Valuable? Maybe. Decorative? Definitely. You'll clean it later, maybe shine it up, and convince the ragman it belonged to a doctor with secrets. You stash it quickly and turn to leave. The other mudlarks are moving too, scrambling up the bank, sacks over shoulders, feet slipping, curses flying. You glance back once. The river is already claiming what you didn't, swallowing the debris, smoothing out the footprints, erasing the history you just disturbed. Alfie reaches the top of the slope and offers you a hand. You grab it, boots squelching, sack thumping against your back. At the top, you both pause and look down. You can barely tell you were ever there. That's how it goes. Every day, every tide, you come, you dig, you vanish. The river remains. Lunch is not so much a meal as a strategic pause in the day's survival marathon. There's no ringing bell, no tidy cloth napkin or slice of pie. Just a moment, brief and wind whipped. When your stomach demands tribute and your hands are too numb to argue, you find your usual spot near the crumbled foundation of an old dock wall, where the wind is slightly less ambitious, and the stones still hold a little warmth from the morning sun, assuming the sun bothered to show up today. It didn't. You sit, knees to chest, sack nestled against your side like a faithful, stinking companion. Your coat creaks when you bend. It's still damp, and it's unclear whether that's from sweat, mist, river water, or tears. Likely all four. You dig into your pocket and pull out your lunch, if it can be called that. A hunk of bread. Grayish. Dense. Possibly weaponized. The kind of bread that resists teeth, time, and joy. Still, it's food. You chew. You don't enjoy. You just do. Beside you, Alfie tears at a heel of something that once flirted with being a scone. He makes a face, then mutters, "Might be sawdust." "Better than last week's," you reply between grinds. "That was brick." He shrugs. "Bit of texture's good for the gums." You eat in silence for a while, watching the river edge up the bank like a bored cat. The tide is returning, and with it, your time is shrinking. But the river moves slow. You've got maybe 40 minutes before it floods your morning's hard-won progress. So for now, you chew, you swallow, you breathe. Historians still debate what the average working-class child ate in Victorian London. They'll rattle off charts and caloric breakdowns and museum menus. But you know the truth. It was bread, maybe with lard, maybe with tea, occasionally a scrap of meat so dry it had to be negotiated with, but mostly bread. And not the good kind, the kind that fought back. Alfie finishes his loaf and picks something out of his teeth with a fishbone. "Saw Nellie earlier," he says. "Yeah?" "She found a clay pipe bowl, intact." "That's rare." "Sold it for a penny." "Even rarer." You nod. Pipe bowls are big money, especially the ones with patterns, ships, faces, flowers. Some collectors pay extra for those. You found one once with a horse on it. Sold it for tuppence and a boiled sweet. The sweet gave you a headache. You take a sip of water from a bottle that's older than you and smells like old pennies. You're not sure where the water came from. You're not sure you want to know. A sudden wind whips around the stone wall, kicking up a mist of fine grit and unpleasant surprises. Your coat flaps. Alfie curses softly. "I hate this part," he mutters. "The wind?" "Not the sitting," he says. "Feels like wasting time. Like something's getting buried while I'm sat on my behind." He has a point. Lunch, even in its most tragic form, is dangerous. Because while you sit, someone else is standing. While you chew, someone else is digging. While you pause, the tide creeps. You cram the last of the bread into your mouth and rise. Every joint protests. Your knees are stiff, your fingers curled like claws, your shoulders hunched from hours of larking posture. You stretch, regret it instantly. A gull lands nearby and eyes you judgmentally. You toss it a crumb. It looks unimpressed and flies off. Typical. Alfie stands, dusts his hands on his coat, and scans the riverbank. You take an east side? You nod. It's less popular, riskier, slipperier. But sometimes that's where the river hides its secrets. Under the ledges, near the old wrecks, in the pockets where others won't stoop. He trudges westward, muttering about spoon handles and fate. You head east. The wind picks up again, sending a ripple across the water. Your sack slaps your side as you move, heavier now with the morning's winnings. Still not enough. Never enough. You've still got time. Not much, but some. Enough for one more find. Enough for one more scrape, one more cut, one more possible treasure. Enough to beat the river by a single step. Because this is lunch for you. A crust of bread, a pause in the cold, a chance to breathe before diving back into the filth. It's not glamorous, it's not restful, but it's yours. And sometimes that's enough. The eastern side of the bank is quieter. Quieter and frankly meaner. The ground is uneven, carved by time and disregard. Old stone footings, half collapsed docks, forgotten timbers that jut out like broken ribs. It's not as popular with the younger mudlarks, mostly because it's the kind of place that swallows boots, egos, and the occasional bucket. But you like it, not because it's safe, but because it's not. And because danger, in your experience, keeps most of the competition at a polite distance. You pick your way over a pile of river stones, each one slick as a pickpocket's promise. The mud here is deeper, stickier. You step wrong, and you're halfway to your shin in something that smells like wet dog and shoe polish. You yank your foot free with a slurp that echoes faintly in the breeze. And then you see it, a glimmer. You pause. It's nestled in a crevice between two broken bricks. Just a flash of something metallic, catching the dull light through the clouds. Not shiny like new money, shiny like old money. Or old something. You crouch, heart skipping just a bit. You dig with your fingers first, gently. It's delicate, whatever it is. Brittle, maybe. You don't want to damage it. That's a rookie mistake. Rushing. It comes loose with a sigh. A brooch, oval, gilt, with a pressed design of what looks like a bird? No, a cherub or an angel. One wing is worn smooth. The back pin is rusted and barely hanging on, but it's beautiful. Really beautiful. You brush away more mud. Tiny letters etched around the edge. Remember me. You freeze, not from fear, not from excitement. From that strange third thing, what Alfie earlier called the part you try not to think about. The people part. Who wore this? Who dropped it? Was it tossed in grief? Lost in love? Did someone weep when it vanished? You blink, shake it off, and pocket it. You're not here for sentiment. You're here to eat. Still, you won't sell this one. Not yet. Historians still argue whether items like this made it to pawn shops or found their way into the pockets of street traders who didn't ask questions. You think the answer is both, but with one important detail: some things, the best things, never made it to market at all. They stayed with the finder, tucked away. Little secrets, tiny trophies. You move on. You pass a rotted barrel. Something stirs inside. You don't investigate. You pass a pair of gulls fighting over what might once have been an eel or possibly a bootlace. You wish them luck. You climb over a cracked mooring post and land in a patch of brambles. Victorian brambles don't just scratch. They remember. You hiss as one hooks your sleeve. You wrestle it free, leaving behind a shred of coat and several ounces of dignity. And then, another find. A bone-handled toothbrush. Still intact. No bristles, but still. A prize. You once sold one for tuppence. The buyer said he used it to clean coins. You didn't ask follow-up questions. You drop it into your sack, already feeling the day's haul shift and settle. A few more steps and you nearly trip on a pile of stone. Then you realize it's not just stone. It's a foundation of something old. A forgotten structure, maybe? A river stair? A fragment of a house that once had a view, then had a flood, then had nothing? You crouch and examine it. Bits of pottery wedged between bricks, a rusted hinge still nailed into timber, a fork embedded in the mortar. It's a scene frozen in collapse. A domestic archaeological buffet. You dig. You uncover a pipe stem, white clay, long as your thumb, still whole. You smile. Those are collectible. You uncover a copper key, heavy, could be decorative, could be haunted. You uncover a child's shoe, tiny, worn, still laced. You stop. The shoe is caked in mud, but it's not rotted, not fully. It must have been preserved in silt. You stare at it. It stares back. You hold it for a moment longer than you mean to. Then you wrap it in cloth and tuck it away gently. No jokes this time, just silence. Because the river doesn't just hold trash, it holds memories, and sometimes it lets them go. You rise, legs protesting, fingers frozen and filthy. The wind howls along the embankment like a choir of disgruntled spirits. The river is higher now. The edge creeps toward your boots, sloshing against stones, claiming inches with quiet menace. Time to go. You make your way back, retracing your steps, careful not to slip. The others are already pulling back too. Alfie waving from the middle bank, Tommy whistling some tune that sounds suspiciously like the funeral march. You climb past the barrel, the gulls, the stairs, and up toward the street, sack swinging, heart beating just a little faster. Because today, you found things worth more than coins. And somehow, in this fog-soaked, filth-slick corner of the world, that feels like winning. By the time you make it back up to street level, your hands are shaking, your knees are dusted in river grit, and your back feels like it's been personally cursed by every saint in the Anglican calendar. You pause near a lamppost, not to admire the view, there is none, but to lean against something that won't squelch beneath you. The city hums overhead. Carts rattle by. Boots clack. A chimney sweep whistles, though you can't tell if it's a tune or just wind escaping through cracked teeth. You're back among the surface folk now. The ones with errands, places to be, coins to jingle in their actual pockets. You, meanwhile, are holding a sack of soggy history and hoping someone will find it fascinating enough to trade for food. Your first stop is the Rag and Bone Yard. It's wedged between a tannery and a sausage stall that smells faintly of betrayal. The sign above the gate reads, A. Dimsley and Sons. Iron, bone, curiosity. You've never seen a son. You suspect they're fictional, or long since traded in for copper. You knock once, then duck under the archway. The yard is a controlled chaos of crates, carts, and clutter, like a dragon's hoard, if the dragon had a deep fondness for scrap metal and broken chamber pots. Mr. Dimsley himself emerges from the shadows like a disgruntled toad in a bowler hat. His beard is mostly tobacco and dust. His fingers are stained with decades of rust and suspicion. Well then, he grunts, what's the river brought today? You open your sack and begin to lay items out on the barrel he uses as a table. The copper hinge, the rusted spoon, the chain, the toothbrush, the mirror shard, each one set down with the quiet hope that he won't sneer too hard. He picks up the toothbrush, squints. No bristles, you nod. For coins, someone will want it. He picks up the hinge. This real copper? Thumped when I dropped it. He thumped it. It's a recognized test. He weighs the chain, frowns at the brooch, and sniffs the bit of rope, which is never necessary, and yet he always does it. Then he holds up the child's shoe. You brace yourself. He stares at it a long time. Bit sentimental. Bit saleable, you counter. Morbid, he mutters. Morbid sells. He squints at you. You squint back. Finally, he gestures to the side table, the payment bench. From under a slab of wood, he draws out a handful of coins and clinks them into a battered tin cup. 3 pence for the lot, he declares, as though he's performed a miracle. You blink. 3? Be glad it ain't 2. Historians still debate what kind of prices mudlarks actually got for their fines. Whether they were fairly paid, regularly cheated, or just entirely at the mercy of men like Dimsley. You could save them the ink. The answer is yes. You sigh, nod, and take the coins. They're warm from his pocket, slightly sticky. You don't ask, what with? You leave the yard, tuck the coins into your coat, and stand there for a moment, staring out at the street like you've just exited another dimension, which, in many ways, you have. A man bumps into you, mutters something about watch where you're loitering, and carries on, never noticing the flecks of river muck on your boots or the cherub brooch tucked deep in your pocket. You head for the bakery next, not to buy anything yet, but to look, to smell, to imagine. The scent is sweet and warm and utterly illegal in its power. A girl inside the shop lifts a tray of buns from the oven. You stand just outside the fogged glass and pretend it's your turn next. Maybe later. You wander. This is the in-between time. Too early for supper. Too late to go back to the river. You find Alfie near the fountain, chewing on something suspicious and flipping a button like it owes him rent. Dimsley rob you? He asks. 3 pence? Luxury. He holds up his find. A length of brass wire. Told me it was too bendy. Said it had a bad attitude. You snort. Gonna try Petey the pawn instead, he adds. Petey don't like larks. Petey likes money, Alfie shrugs. He'll like me if I lie well enough. You sit beside him on the fountain's ledge, which is damp, cold, and probably cursed, but it beats standing. This part of the day is the strangest. You're not in the river anymore, but you're not clean either. You don't belong with the shoppers or the shopkeepers. You're not part of the street crowd, but you move through it, unseen, unless you're in the way. You're between worlds, still damp, still muddy, but just dry enough to pass. You hold your coins in your hand, consider your options. A bread roll, some cheese, a bit of tea. You could stretch it, make it last until tomorrow, or spend it all now. Eat like a king, and figure out breakfast when the sun comes up. You look at Alfie. He's chewing with his eyes closed, possibly pretending it's pie. You sigh and decide on bread. You find the baker's boy stacking loaves outside the cart near the alley behind St. Olave's. His hands quick and flour-dusted, his face perpetually annoyed, like he's been personally wronged by yeast. The bread isn't fresh. It's the end-of-day stuff. Crust, gone a bit hard. Price knocked down half a farthing. Exactly your kind of luxury. You hover near the cart until he acknowledges you with a grunt and a look that says, Fine, muddy goblin, what'll it be? You hold out one of your precious copper coins. He hands you a small roll, dense, slightly warm, but only from the residual heat of the street. You take it without ceremony and tuck it into your coat like it might fly away if you don't hold it tight. And just like that, you've turned river junk into dinner. It feels victorious, in a deeply unsatisfying, still starving kind of way. Alfie catches up a few minutes later, brandishing a crust of his own. Petey gave me a halfpenny and a threat, he says cheerfully. Said if I brought him one more decorative stick, he'd brain me with it. That fair? Honestly, yes. You walk together for a bit, chewing quietly, dodging puddles and people with equal indifference. The role is hard, but it's your role, which somehow makes the chewing easier. You end up at the edge of Rookery Row, where the buildings lean inward like they're conspiring. Clotheslines crisscross above your heads, full of shirts that have known neither soap nor hope. A cat watches you from a ledge, blinking slowly like it's seen things and would rather not again. This is the part of town where London forgets itself. It wasn't built so much as accumulated, one shoddy structure at a time. You pass windows with no glass, doorways with no doors, and people with no real interest in looking you in the eye. But you're used to it. This is home, sort of. You reach your building, a 5-story wonder of rot, rust, and resistance. Your room is near the top, in a space that used to be an attic or a very confused pigeon coop. You climb the narrow stairs sideways, sack over your shoulder, trying not to make the wood creak too loudly. At the third floor, Mrs. Griggs opens her door just long enough to hurl a shoe at a barking dog that may or may not exist. You nod to her. She doesn't see you. Or she does, and chooses not to acknowledge the mud dripping from your elbows. Fair. You reach the top and push open the hatch. Your room is a triangle. Not just in shape, spiritually. It's all corners, slants, shadows. One cot, one stove, one window, cracked and clouded like a cataract. But it's dry, mostly. You drop your sack near the door, shake off your coat, and sit. The cot wheezes like an asthmatic accordion. You take out the brooch, the cherub one, the remember me one. You hold it up to the window. The light is bad, but the shape is clear. The detail. It's lovely. Not valuable, maybe, but lovely. You lay it gently on the crate that serves as a shelf, and a table, and sometimes a pillow. Then you unpack the rest: the hinge, the toothbrush, the mirror shard, the spoon. Your day's history, laid out in a row. It doesn't look like much, but to you, it's survival. Historians still debate whether mudlarks felt pride in their finds or simply saw them as transactions. You know the truth. It's both. You find a piece of someone else's past, and for a brief moment, it becomes your present, your future, if you're lucky. You take off your boots, finally, and dump out the river from inside them. A small crab falls out. You nod respectfully. Evening. The crab scuttles under the crate. Fair trade. You stretch. Every joint cracks like bad firewood. Your shirt clings to you like a damp hug. Your fingernails are tiny historical archives. You'll wash tomorrow. Maybe. Or not. Depends on whether it rains indoors again tonight. You tear off a corner of your bread roll and chew it slowly now that the rush has passed. The flavor is neutral, like chewing on history itself, but it fills the hollow, and that's all it needs to do. You lean back and look out the window. The rooftops of London roll away beneath you, black and crooked and strange. Chimneys belch smoke, lights flicker on in places where people are already seated at dinner tables with clean plates and candles and cutlery that isn't sharp only by accident. You're not jealous. Not really. You've got your corner of the city, your finds, your treasure. You've survived another day with mud on your skin, grit in your teeth, and stories in your sack. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again, because that's the life. You take, you trade, you mudlark. Evening hits London like a damp quilt, heavy, dark, and slightly moldy. The fog thickens, curling between buildings, weaving through chimneys, rising up from the Thames as if the river itself is trying to climb back into the city. The sounds change too. Fewer cartwheels, more drunken singing, more dogs barking at invisible enemies. You know what comes next. You sling your sack back over your shoulder. The day's finds picked clean, the best pieces already sold, the rest rattling like broken promises. But there's still one stop left, maybe the most important, the rag shop. It's not really a shop, it's more of a lean to, tucked into the side of a crumbling pub, with a warped sign that reads Curios and Wares, even though it sells neither with any reliability. The man who runs it doesn't have a name, not one anyone uses. Most people just call him Gutter George. He looks like he was grown in the cellar of a vinegar factory and never quite ripened. His beard is a different length every day. His jacket has more patches than fabric. His voice sounds like it's filtered through gravel and regret. But he pays. Not much, not well. But sometimes he sees value where others don't. You duck into the shop. The doorway so low you feel like you're entering a secret society for people who smell like river decay and bad decisions. George doesn't look up. He never does. You drop your last few items onto his counter. You save them, just in case. Not because they're the best, but because George is unpredictable. He might call your bent spoon a Civil War relic, or dismiss your key as household rubbish. He squints at your offerings, lifts the mirror shard, spooky, lifts the pipe stem, clean, lifts the fork, Then he picks up the toothbrush, snorts. Popular this week, he mutters. Third one I've seen. You nod. River's feeling generous. He rummages through a tin and drops a few coins on the table. Less than Dimsley gave. But you expected that. Then, to your surprise, he pulls something out from under the counter. Not common. He places it gently on the table. A book. Leather-bound, worn but still intact. You blink. Found it this morning, he says, tapping it once. Up near Wapping. You stare at it. It's not for sale? He shrugs. Not really reading material for most. Thought maybe you'd appreciate it. You pick it up. It's heavy. Smells of river and ink. The title is barely legible. The gold lettering nearly rubbed off. Sermons for the Industrious Child. You flip through it. Inside, delicate handwriting in the margins. A child's drawings. A flower pressed between pages. You glance up. Why me? George shrugs again. Because you don't just sell things. You look at them. You don't know what to say to that. So you nod. Tuck the book into your coat and walk out into the street with something rare. A gift. Historians still argue whether ragmen, like George, were part of the informal care network of the poor, or just opportunists with a flair for the dramatic. You don't think they were either. They were just there, like the river, like the fog, like you. Outside, the wind has shifted, colder now, sharper. You pull your coat tighter, cross your arms, and start the long walk back. You pass a woman selling pies. They smell heavenly. They also probably contain absolutely nothing that originally identified as animal. You don't care. You buy one. Hot, greasy, and alarmingly crunchy. Dinner of champions. You munch as you pass the shoemaker's, where a boy is being scolded for bringing in a left boot when they clearly asked for a right. You pass the street preacher, who rants daily about the end times and the devil's fondness for theater folk. You nod at the cat near the bakery. It ignores you. Typical. You pass a group of other larks gathered under a gas lamp, laughing, showing off finds, swapping coins and lies. You spot Alfie waving a bit of metal around like it's Excalibur. Found this near the bridge, he yells. It's a door handle, someone says. Still noble. You grin. Just a twitch, but it counts. You don't stop to join. Not tonight. Your sack is lighter now. Your coat is heavier. And your hands smell like fish and brass and old paper. You're tired. But it's a good tired. The kind that comes from doing from surviving, from pulling something, anything, from the muck and calling it yours. You reach your building just as the bells begin to chime, dull, distant, half hearted. You climb the stairs. The wood creaks like it's gossiping about your day. You reach your room. It smells the same: damp wood, dust, a hint of whatever the neighbors are boiling, which might be socks. You sit. You pull out the book, open it, turn the pages slowly, careful not to tear the delicate leaves. Inside, a child's scrawl. Today I saw the river. You nod. So did you. The others filter into the building one by one, trailing mud and muttered complaints, the sounds of tired feet and rusted hinges marking the passage of evening like a choir of defeated ghosts. You hear Alfie first. He always whistles when he's nervous, or pretending not to be, and then Bess's heavy boots, stomping, like she owns the place, and dares anyone to suggest otherwise. Your room doesn't have a door, just a curtain. It flaps once as someone brushes past. No one says much this time of night. It's not a rule exactly, but everyone's learned that by now, words are expensive. They cost energy you no longer have. And besides, what's left to say? You've all survived another day. That's enough. You sit on the floor and sort through your remaining finds. Not for sale, just for keeping. The cherub brooch, the spoon with the initials, the child's shoe wrapped in cloth and pressed flat like it's trying not to take up space. Each one is quiet in your hand, heavy, not just with weight, but with story. You don't know the full story, never will, but the not knowing is part of it too. Historians still argue whether the Mudlarks kept trophies or just forgot to sell things. You know it's more complicated. Some items never leave your pocket, not because they're valuable, but because they remind you that someone once dropped them, someone had them, and now you do. The river gives, you keep. Alfie pokes his head in without warning. I got a place at Nellie's card game, he says, trying to look casual. They need a fifth. You raise an eyebrow. I've got 2 coppers left. Perfect, he says. You can lose quickly and go to bed early. You consider it, but your limbs say no, so you shake your head. He shrugs. Suit yourself. Then, you know Lizzie's sleeping down by the boiler tonight? Says she found a fish with eyelashes. Eyelashes? That's what she claims. Might have been string. You nod. River's fashionable lately. He grins and disappears down the hall. You hear his voice a moment later, joining the others in a game that involves a lot of coughing, occasional laughter, and someone repeatedly asking what trumps spades. You lie back on your cot, stare at the ceiling. There's a crack up there shaped like a crow. Or maybe a hat. You're never quite sure. It's comforting. In a strange way. It's always there. A familiar imperfection in a world that changes too fast. You stretch your legs. They ache like old iron. Your hands are sore. Your shoulders feel like they've been pulled sideways by a horse and forgotten. But your belly's not empty. Your sack's not bare. Your coat, despite its insistence on resembling a mop, is still holding together. You made it. Today, at least. You hear a creak from the far end of the hallway. Someone shuffling. Then a laugh. Then silence. The night settles in. This building, filled with mudlarks and pipe sellers, with bottle pickers and alley dwellers, becomes something strange after dark, almost sacred, like a church made of desperation and wet socks. And you're one of the congregation, not proud, not ashamed, just here, just alive. You reach over to the crate by your bed, pick up the brooch again. It's lighter now, as if it's grateful to be seen. You don't know who Remember Me was meant for, but somehow tonight it's meant for you. You whisper it softly, remember me. Not to anyone in particular, just the room, the air, the London that forgot you. Just in case. You tuck it back in its cloth. Then pull the blanket over yourself, thin, worn, smelling faintly of ash and soap from 4 owners ago. You close your eyes. The river murmurs in your ears still, not with menace this time, but rhythm, like it's humming you to sleep. And maybe it is, because whether you like it or not, you'll be back there tomorrow. You dream in brown and gray and silver, in slow moving water and fog that rolls like a whisper, in the glint of a coin under the muck, in the hush before a shout of discovery, in cold fingers pulling treasure from silt. Then the shouting begins again, but it's not in your dream. It's outside your room. You jolt upright, heart thumping, blanket tangled around your knees like seaweed. A door slams. Footsteps hammer up the stairwell. The walls, never strong to begin with, shudder as someone barrels past. A voice cuts through. Watchman, you blink, still half in the river. Downstairs, he's asking questions. You scramble up, boots half laced, coat slung over one shoulder, sack clutched close. Not because you've done anything wrong, yet, but because questions lead to papers, and papers lead to problems, and problems lead to jail or worse. Being sent to a factory. No mud, no fines, just windows that never open and machines that never stop. You slip into the hallway just as Alfie bursts out of Nellie's room, eyes wide, mouth full of toast. You see him? He asks, chewing like panic tastes like marmalade. Not yet, you mutter, heading for the back stairs. He's asking about that brooch. Your blood goes cold. The brooch. The cherub. The one that whispered, "Remember me." Someone sold a match for it, Alfie says, sliding past you. Claimed it was stolen from a lady's carriage. You're not in trouble yet, but he doesn't need to finish. You take the stairs 3 at a time, sack slapping your back, feet slipping on damp wood. Behind you, someone starts coughing. Below you, the front door opens. Voices, boots. You hit the alley and run. The air outside is sharp, the kind that grabs your lungs and shakes them like a rug. You dart left, then right, through a gap between buildings, over a crate, past a sleeping dog that does not care. Behind you, nothing. No pursuit, no shouts, no boots. But you don't stop. You keep running until your legs scream, until the buildings fade and the river returns. Cold, low, familiar. You crouch near a pile of stones and pull the brooch from your coat. It's wrapped in the same cloth, still smooth, still gleaming faintly in the fog. You stare at it. It could be the one, or just one like it. Victorians weren't exactly original when it came to cherubs and sentimental engraving. Historians still argue whether mudlarks ever got caught with stolen goods, or if their finds were just too lowly to bother with. But you know the answer. It only takes one rich person missing one shiny thing for everyone to start looking your way. You sit alone. The river laps the bank in slow, deliberate rhythms. You hold the brooch tightly, then glance behind you. The alley's empty. The fog's thick. You could toss it. Let the river take it back. You should, but you don't. Instead, you dig a small hole in the mud near a half-rotted beam. Place the brooch inside and cover it gently. You'll come back for it, or you won't. Maybe someone else will. Maybe it'll stay buried for another 100 years, until another kid with cold fingers and sharp eyes pulls it free. Either way, it's safe now. Not from rust, not from water, but from people. You stand, shake the damp from your coat, and step back from the river. Your hands are filthy. Your boots are soaked, and you feel better, like you dodged something, like you made a choice. You return to the street slowly, letting your heart settle. No one waits for you at the corner. No one follows. You blend back into the morning crowd like mist. London doesn't notice. It never does. You find Alfie back near the pie cart, licking jelly from his thumb and grinning like he didn't just cause a minor panic. All sorted, he says. How? Turns out the lady lost two brooches. Hers had rubies, yours didn't. Wrong cherub. You raise an eyebrow. How do you know that? He winks. I asked. You shake your head and accept the apple he hands you. It's small, bruised, and probably older than you, but you bite it anyway. It tastes like vinegar and luck. The river forgives. You just have to outrun the trouble long enough to earn it. You and Alfie walk in companionable silence, the kind that settles in after narrowly avoiding legal complications. The fog begins to thin as the sun makes a valiant but mostly unsuccessful attempt to poke through London's eternal gray blanket. The Thames glints weakly in the distance, dull pewter instead of silver, but it's enough to call you back. Your feet take you there without asking. You don't need to decide anymore. The tide is out. That's all that matters. Back to the bank. Back to the sludge. Back to the hunt. The mud is thicker today, as if it too has opinions about your life choices. You sink a little deeper with each step, boots slurping with reluctant loyalty. A barge groans in the distance, its hull echoing like a wail that regrets evolving lungs. You find your usual spot, the one beneath the iron bridge post, the one that gets just enough light to see, but not enough for the others to bother with. You like it that way. Less competition, fewer witnesses. You kneel and begin again. The rhythm returns almost instantly. Dig, flick, sort, repeat. Like breathing, if breathing involved more damp grit and less oxygen. First find a clay pipe stem. Snapped. Common. Still saleable. Second, a belt buckle. Rusted, but intact. Probably military. Possibly decorative. Could fetch a halfpenny if you tell a good enough story. Third, something strange. A smooth, pale object, oval. Bone, maybe? Or ivory. You pick it up. It's a doll's head. Tiny. Porcelain. Empty-eyed. You turn it in your fingers. There's a crack down one cheek, a chip in the brow, but the detail is still there. Painted lashes, a faint blush on the cheeks, lips pursed in a perpetual O. You stare at it longer than you mean to, because it's not just a find, it's a presence. Historians still debate what to make of the thousands of doll parts recovered from the Thames. Some say they were discarded toys. Others believe they were offerings, symbols, even warnings. You don't know about all that, but you know this. Something about it feels important. You wrap it in cloth and slip it into your coat. Alfie calls from 20 feet away. Oi, found a button. You shout back. Hope it's attached to a coat. He cackles, disappears behind a pile of timber. You keep digging. The doll's head has you thinking, not about ghosts or curses, about children. Not mudlarks like you, different ones. The kind that had dolls to lose in the first place. The kind with rooms and rugs and governesses and stories that didn't start in alleys. You wonder what happened. Did someone drop it? Did someone throw it? Was it stolen? Did it float here from miles upriver, carried by tide and time and carelessness? The river doesn't say. It never does. You find a fork, bent, but monogrammed. Someone's initials, all fancy curls and pride. You wonder if they miss it, if they even noticed it was gone. You find a shoe buckle, a pipe bowl with a sun carved into the side, a coin so worn it's practically a blank slate. You keep them all, because out here, every scrap matters. Every object is a question. Every find is a chance. The sun, stubborn and pale, climbs a little higher. The fog finally begins to lift. Shapes emerge in the distance. Chimneys, rooftops, the figures of other mudlarks hunched like question marks over the shoreline. You pause, stretch your back, listen to the city breathing behind you, then return to the mud. You find a piece of leather with stitching still visible. A child's glove? A wallet? A piece of a bag? Hard to say. You tuck it away just in case. The ragman might want it. Or George. Or someone who likes pretending things can be made whole again. You find a comb, half snapped, tortoiseshell, or an imitation. Either way, beautiful. You rub it clean and admire the curve. The teeth worn smooth by use or age or both. You slip it into your pocket and smile. Today, the river is being generous. Or maybe you've just learned how to listen better. Your hands are soaked. Your coat, despite best efforts, is now as damp as an apology letter. But your sack is filling. Slowly, steadily. That's what matters. Not comfort, not praise, just wait. Just proof. Proof that you were here, that you dug, that you found something that didn't belong and made it yours. By mid afternoon, your shoulders ache like someone's been using them as drumheads. Your fingers are pruned and numb, a fine mix of river water and whatever's in that suspicious black sludge near the sewer outfall. You wipe your hands on your coat, which at this point is really just a moving rag pile with buttons. Still, the sack is heavier. You count that as a victory. Today's haul includes 3 pipe stems, a spoon with a bent handle, a suspiciously sharp fragment of mirror, 2 belt buckles, 1 brass, 1 ambition, the haunted doll head, and what might be a tiny pewter tankard from a dollhouse or a very specific pub. You feel, dare you say it, accomplished, until you slip and fall, face first, into a puddle of cold regret. It happens fast. One moment you're scanning for copper near a mossy brick, the next your boots betray you, the ground shifts, and your face meets mud like it owes you money. You lie there for a moment because what else is there to do? Your ears ring, your nose burns, your pride is somewhere upstream, floating past Westminster with a flag marked, "Nice try." Then you hear clapping, slow, sarcastic clapping. You roll over and see Bess. Of course it's Bess. She leans on her larking stick like a queen observing peasants. "Lovely form," she says. "Bit more splash next time, and you'll win the Thames Ballet." You sit up spitting mud. She tosses you a rag that smells vaguely of onions. "Here, don't die. I like having someone uglier than me around." You dab your face, mutter something politish, and stand. "I saw Alfie," she says, her voice dropping. "He said someone's been lifting fines again. Whole sacks. Just gone." You frown. Who'd be that stupid? Someone hungry or greedy or both. She shrugs and wanders off, stick tapping a rhythm only she understands. You watch her go, heart a little heavier, because she's right. You felt it too. Things missing. Places picked over too clean too early. A quiet tension among the larks. It's not a gang, not yet, but something's shifting. Historians still argue whether mudlarks organized into networks or simply coexisted in chaotic harmony. Some say there were unwritten rules. Others claim it was every elbow for itself. You've always believed in rules, if only because someone needs to break them to make things interesting. You sling your sack higher and move on. Carefully this time. The fall rattled you, but also reminded you this river owes you nothing. It gives, it takes, and it rarely apologizes. You find a cluster of bricks near a pile of driftwood, each one glinting with something between algae and despair. You dig anyway. A shoehorn, a ceramic bead, a bent pin, then something else, a ring. Small, simple, copper or brass. Nothing fancy, but real, whole. You hold it up, letting the light catch. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's something, and it's yours. You pocket it gently, like it might vanish. Then you glance upriver and see a boy, young, maybe 6, watching you. He's not digging. He's just standing, holding an empty bucket and looking like he's not sure if he belongs. You walk over. First day? You ask. He nods. You offer him the shoehorn. He stares. It's not much, you say, but it'll buy you bread. Maybe. He takes it like it's treasure. To him it is. You watch him go, tiny legs stomping off with determination. Another one of you, you think. Another river child. You return to your spot and dig once more, the cold easing back into your bones like an old friend. There's still light left, still mud to move, still stories to find. And if someone out there is stealing from larks, well, they'd better be good because you're watching now. And this river has rules, unspoken, unwritten, but real. Evening drapes itself over London like an old wool coat, scratchy, familiar, and impossible to shake off. The streets darken by degrees, as if someone's slowly dimming the whole city with a smudged thumb. Gas lamps sputter to life one by one, their yellow glow flickering like they're unsure if it's worth the effort. You're heading home now, sack slung over one shoulder, fingers stiff. The ring still in your pocket, warm against the cold ache in your hand. You take the long way back, not out of caution, but habit. You like to walk past the big houses, the ones with brass door knockers and windows full of lamps. You pretend, just for a minute, that one of those homes is yours. Inside, a fire, a chair, maybe even socks that match. Outside, you, soggy, tired, rich in rust. A carriage rattles by, and the woman inside doesn't see you. She wouldn't know what to make of you if she did. You're a background detail in her story, possibly a cautionary tale. You walk on, past the pie seller, past the boot repairman's stall, past the cat that may or may not be immortal, back to the crooked building that insists on standing, mostly out of habit. Inside, the usual sounds, coughing, snoring, arguing about something that doesn't matter. Someone's boiling what smells like an old shoe. You climb the stairs slower this time. Your legs feel like wet rope. You're not in a rush. The day is done. You reach your room, sit on the cot, and exhale. It comes out of you like steam. You pull out your finds, not for sorting, not for selling, just to look, to remind yourself you didn't dream it. The doll's head, the brass buckle, the ring, the comb, each one soft in the gaslight, dulled by time, sharpened by history. You sit with them. You don't need them to talk. They've said enough. You tuck the ring away again, in a tin under your bed. Not to sell. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Some things feel too earned to be given up for crust and coin. Historians still argue whether mudlarks were truly invisible to the upper classes, or whether the wealthy simply chose not to see them. You know the answer. You felt the answer in the way people step around you, not out of fear or disgust, but dismissal, as if you're part of the pavement. But invisibility, used well, is power. No one bothers the shadow. No one questions the silence. And while they're not looking, you find everything they've lost. You light a candle stub and sit near the window. London hums below. You're a part of it, and not. You hold up the comb, run your fingers over the edge. It's chipped, broken, still beautiful, like you. You stare out the window. You wonder what tomorrow will bring. More river, more luck, more muck, but also possibility. You smile, not because life is easy, but because it's yours. Every brick, every bruise, every bent spoon. You stretch out on the cot, coat still on, boots off but socks damp. You pull the blanket to your chin and close your eyes. The building creaks. Someone down the hall laughs. A baby cries, and outside the river whispers. It always does. It says, "Come back." There's more. There's always more. You wake before the sun. The world is still blue and breathless. suspended in that thin slice of time when even the rats haven't made up their minds about breakfast. The window glows faintly, like it's considering letting the morning in, but hasn't decided whether you deserve it. Your fingers ache as you flex them, your shoulders groan, your knees remind you that gravity is a cruel mistress, and mud is not a forgiving mattress. You sit up. The room is cold. Your breath clouds. You wrap your coat tighter around your chest, not because it helps, but because it makes you feel like you're trying. Trying counts. You stretch, crack your neck, and listen. London hasn't woken yet. No carts, no boots, no yelling. Just the slow creak of old wood and a pigeon somewhere having a personal crisis. You pull your boots on. They're still damp. They'll always be damp. It's their nature now. Less footwear, more portable puddles. You gather your things, the sack, the stick, the same coat. But this time you hesitate because something's different. It's the tin under your bed, the one where you tuck the ring. You pull it out, open it. It's still there. Small, simple, untouched by the night. You stare. Then slowly, carefully, you tuck it into your coat. You're not selling it. Not today. Maybe not ever. It's not about the value. It's about having it. A symbol. A keepsake. A reminder that the river gives, yes, but you decide what stays. You slip downstairs, past the usual suspects, curled in corners, huddled in blankets, their dreams full of soot and yesterday's bread. You nod to the cat on the second floor banister. It nods back, then coughs. Outside, the city is damp and waiting. Fog hangs low, wrapping the streets in uncertainty. You breathe it in like a challenge. You walk toward the river, boots tapping on stone, sack light, hopes heavy. The tide is low again, as if it waited for you. You scramble down the embankment, each step familiar, each stone like an old friend that still forgets your name. You kneel, you dig. First, nothing, then something. A coin, worn smooth, unrecognizable, absolutely perfect. You smile, because this is how the day begins. Not with breakfast, not with warmth, but with discovery. Historians still argue whether mudlarks shaped London or were shaped by it, whether they were scavengers or historians, victims or victors. You think they're missing the point. You were there, in the mud, in the moment, in the story, and no one, not kings, not scholars, not constables with very shiny boots, can take that from you. You tuck the coin into your pocket next to the ring and start again because the river never runs out, and neither do you. And now, dear listener, the river fades. The tide has returned, the embankment swallowed, the footsteps erased. The mudlarks retreat, one by one, sacks slung low, stories rattling like coins in their pockets. You're warm now, far from the chill of the Thames. Your hands are clean, your bed is soft. The weight of rust and river is just a hum in your bones, fading with every breath. But part of you still lingers there, doesn't it? Kneeling in the mist, brushing mud from a pipe stem, holding your breath as the fog rolls back to reveal something forgotten, something small, something strange, something real. That's the magic of it. Not the treasure, not the profit, but the search, the quiet hope that the next handful of mud will hold a secret, a name, a memory, a whisper. So rest now. Let your thoughts drift like the current, slow and easy. Let the fog curl around your mind like an old blanket. Let the silence of the river soothe the creak in your soul. Because tomorrow there will be more stories, more finds, more footsteps on the shore. But for now, it's enough to have been there, to have seen it, to have dug through the past and held it, just for a moment, in your own two hands. Sweet dreams, little mudlark. Sleep deep. And when you wake, remember the river.